The nationwide teacher revolt continues to grow, with educators in 2 states, Arizona and Colorado, walking out of school this week.
Everyone said this could never happen in Arizona. They said it could happen in West Virginia. They said you might see it in Oklahoma, you might see it in Kentucky, not in Arizona. Well, here we are. So where are the skeptics now? Because we're here and we are bringing a change.
Teachers in Colorado walked out of public school classrooms on Thursday and again Friday to demand better pay and more education funding, in the latest revolt by educators that has spread to the U.S. West. Encouraged by similar protests in West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Kentucky, organizers said the job action would send a message to state political leaders about their dissatisfaction. In Arizona, teachers also walked off the job on Thursday and again Friday, with similar demands: better pay and more funding for education. Analysis by the Nonpartisan Center for Budget and Policy Priorities shows that from 2008 to 2015, education spending dropped by 1/3 in Arizona, leading the nation. Meanwhile, tax cuts for the wealthy, backed by powerful interests like the Koch brothers, have made less funding available for education, which is part of the reason Arizona teachers rejected the governor's offer of a 20% pay increase. It didn't come with a dedicated source of revenue.
Yeah, so the number one demand is funding for our schools. Of course, teachers are tired of being paid ridiculously little amounts, and part of our demands is competitive pay to keep teachers teaching. We have over 2,000 vacancies in the state of Arizona, just unfilled teaching positions. And over 800 teachers have left or just never even started the school year. They just quit before they even began. So we're losing teachers in droves, and we have to figure out a way to keep our educators, either from leaving the profession or from leaving the state. But we really want our schools funded. We've lost over $1 billion in funding in the past 10 years. And so at this point, we're asking to get back to our 2008 levels. So we would still be 10 years behind, but we will be back to levels where we can function. That would include infrastructure, funding for all of our support staff. So that includes our custodians, our bus drivers, our teachers' aide, our office staff, everybody, not just teachers. One of the things under Governor Ducey's 20 by 2020 plan is that as a school counselor, I would actually not qualify to receive his 20% raise because I am not a classroom teacher.
Describe the scene today as, I guess, for the second day in a row, school was called off and teachers took to the streets and had their, made their voices heard.
Today, I stayed in Tucson. I didn't go up to Phoenix again. I was up in Phoenix yesterday with estimates between 50 and 75,000 people, mostly educators. Today I was in Tucson, so I went to downtown Tucson along Congress Street, which is where our state building is here. There were approximately 3,000 local Tucsonans out today. We had our red shirts, our signs, a lot of cheers, honks from cars, a lot of community support being felt as people were driving by. The whole area near the state building was just covered in red and people and in signs supporting education.
Some critics say that teachers shouldn't be on strike. They should be teaching their students if they really cared about their students. And they also say that teachers are being greedy, and if they did a better job, they'd be getting paid more. How do you respond to those kind of criticisms?
We'd rather be teaching. That's what we're good at. That's what we do. That's where we want to be. We want to be in our schools, in our classrooms, in our offices, and we want to be working with our students right now. Nobody is walking out or striking because they don't want to be with their students. It's the exact opposite. It's because we're to the point where we can't provide our kids with what they deserve. And we've tried everything that we can try, and every year there's just more and more cuts. And so we got to the point where this is what had to happen. We need more funding because without it, we're not doing our kids justice. We're not giving them the education they deserve.
There's been a wave of teacher revolts, really, starting in West Virginia and spreading west. Now it's made it all the way to Arizona now. Talk about how this protest was organized and whether you took inspiration from other teachers around the country that have also, in many other deeply red, considered red states, conservative-run states, where strikes are illegal, like in Arizona. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so definitely major inspiration from West Virginia, Oklahoma, Kentucky, especially because they are red states. They are traditionally conservative. They are also states who are very similar to us in that cuts to education have been coming constantly. So huge inspiration in that they're seeing results. And so it kind of gave us a lot of momentum that, like, if they can do it, we can do it. As far as the educators in Arizona, the Arizona Educators United group, this has been a whirlwind. It's been really fast. I mean, it started only a couple of months ago, and it started small with just a handful of educators who said, we're fed up. We need change. We need to do something. And it has just snowballed and grown so much. About a week ago, we as educators came together and we voted on what we wanted to do. And I remember sitting up late that night waiting for the votes to be counted and for the verdict to be announced, and glued to social media watching for that live Facebook video that was going to come saying what the next step was. And our the AE leaders got up there, said, we're doing it. We voted. Over 78% of educators have voted, and we're going to strike. And so that was huge, and it was a little terrifying, but it's what we have to do right now.
Also talk about the fact that Arizona, while they've been cutting funding for public schools, they've been expanding charter schools and voucher schools, which siphon money from the public school system and also are not actually accountable to the public. And I know in Arizona there's been high-profile instances of fraud and abuse in those schools. But at the same time, they're promoted as a solution to the struggling public school system, which has been underfunded.
Vouchers have become a huge thing in Arizona, to the point where we have an Arizona tax credit, and you can give to an Arizona school tax credit every year. Individuals can donate $200. Couples filing jointly can donate $400. It's a 100% state tax credit, so it's a dollar for dollar credit. So essentially, I see a refund of that $200 every year. I can donate up to $200 for any public school. I, as an individual, and now this year as a married couple, could donate $400 individually or $800 as a couple to a private school to cover private school tuition. So it's a double dollar for dollar tax credit. So again, if I donated $400 to private school tuition, it does not have to be for my own child. It could be for any kid. So niece, nephew, friend, whatever. I would get that $400 credited to my state taxes. So every $400 that somebody donates to private school tuition is $400 that is pulled from public school education. We also have a lot of charter schools in Arizona. They're very, very popular here. There are some really wonderful charter schools. There are some not wonderful charter schools. The biggest issue with charter schools is that many of them are for profit. So owners of charter schools are making money, and their pockets are getting lined with cash by pulling from public school funding.
The Real News will keep following this story.